people, how you doing? I hope you're having a goddamn great day. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Kylian Mbappé potentially going to Real Madrid and what that system could look like and how he can potentially look to try and fit in with the team at hand. So we will be going through some of the tactics, some of the formations, and how you can more or less try and get the best out of both Real Madrid, Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, as well as the likes of Kylian Mbappé. So I have gone ahead and signed him for career mode, as well as the likes of Alphonso Davies, who is heavily linked with a move to the Spanish Giants. So, you know, I've decided to, you know, throw them into the mix and see what can happen out of that. But as well as with the 4-3-3 system, I've also gone ahead and more or less tried to see how it pans out with a false 9 system, having the likes of Mbappe come off the right-hand side. And I will say, out of the two systems, I prefer this one the most. I think it's also the most realistic in terms of if the likes of Mbappe does go there, you would probably see the likes of Rodrigo playing as that false 9, looking to try and link up the play very effectively with the very fast and pacey front line of the likes of Vinicius Jr. and Kylian Mbappe. So we will be talking about these tactics as well. If you guys can, hit that like button down below, subscribe if you are new, that would be absolutely fantastic and really appreciated from yours truly. But anyways, let's hop on straight to the goddamn video. So, taking a look at the base formation, it is going to be a 4-3-3 holding. I've made no changes to it whatsoever, so it is going to be 1 goalkeeper, 2 centre-backs, 2 full-backs, 1 DM, 2 central midfielders, 1 striker, and then of course 2 wingers. So, for the tactics going forward, I think the best tactical vision that would suit Real Madrid under the likes of Carlo Ancelotti with the likes of Kylian Mbappe would be wing play, looking to try and spread the field, open up a lot of potential pockets of space for the midfielders as well as the likes of the more central players and the likes of Mbappe to try and work with and work into and try to exploit the opposition with. For the defense and the defensive style of things, it's set to pressure on heavy touch. Now more so, this is looking to try and adapt what Carlo Ancelotti is doing currently with this Real Madrid side and looking to try and obviously add in 1 or 2 key figures in obviously Mbappe and Alphonso Davies. But more so, we have seen with the Carlo Ancelotti system, they're not overly, you know, stressed about aggressively pressing the opposition. They're quite happy to sit in their shape, keep their structure as best as they possibly can, and then potentially wait for a mistake to occur, and therefore they'll look to try and pounce that mistake and look to try and capitalize it going forward. For the team width, I've set it to a nice balanced 50, looking to create that 1v1 type situation, allowing for each man to have a role, have a duty in trying to take on the opposition player. For the depth, of course, it is going to be a very good high possession-based brand of football that you are trying to implement. And if I can remember correctly, the previous Carlo Ancelotti systems, I haven't had it this high, but I do think that with the likes of Mbappe as well as Alphonso Davies coming into the side, you might potentially see the likes of Carlo Ancelotti tweak his system ever so slightly to try and favor the more attacking play. And to be honest with you, the high depth and the high line that you will be looking to try and implement into your game, it's more so lending itself to the offensive end of things, looking to try and get the fullbacks nice and high, looking to try and support the attacking outlets as best as it possibly can. Of course, you've got the likes of Vinny, Mbappe, Rodrigo, Jude Bellingham, of course. You're trying to supply all of them with offensive opportunities, and more so, the more aggressive style of defensive ability would be a nice high line, which is more or less what I've gone with. As for the offense and the build-up play going forward, I've set it to balance now. I've said this countless times, but with the more balanced approach, it does keep the structural integrity of the team at hand. It still lends itself to having that nice support, whether it's from the wide areas or the more central areas of the field, but at the same time, it can still incorporate various different aspects. I don't know why I couldn't say that, but various different aspects of the other build-up plays, whether it's a slow build-up play looking to have a bit more of a possession-based brand of football, or maybe even the fast build-up looking to implement that quick counter-attacking style of football. You can look to try and incorporate all of this with the balanced approach. For the chance creation, I've set it to forward runs. Now more so, it will encourage the forwards as well as the midfield players to be pushed nice and high up, trying to attack and impose themselves on the opposition players, and more so keep the waves of pressure and attack flowing quite nicely. For the width, I've set it to around 85, looking to try and stretch the opposition's backline as much as they possibly can, looking to try and, you know, generate as much space between the lines for your front three as well as some of your midfield players to try and work into and try to attack the space. For the players in the box, I've set it to 8, which is more or less around 4 players in and around that attacking area. More so, you want your front 3 as well as the likes of a Jude Bellingham or maybe even a Valverde to be able to break into that attacking area. What I did see was on Twitter, somebody posted something. Of course, nothing is confirmed, by the way, just so you know. But somebody posted, you know, we're never going to ever win another aerial duel ever, because likes of Mbappe is under 6 foot, Vinicius Jr. also under 6 foot, and so on. The only actual attacking threat that's above 6 foot is Jude Bellingham. So you would essentially try and, get him into those attacking areas, trying to attack those crosses and those cutbacks. Because again, more so Real Madrid, they have loads of pace, but they don't have that aerial threat as much as what you would think. For the corners and the free kicks, as always, it's set to 4. Okay, so taking a look at the tactics, starting off at the back with the goalkeeper, of course, Thibaut Courtois. He is set to come for crosses, and in terms of saving outside of the box, I've set him to balance now. More so because you are going to be playing a high line, I would normally say set your keeper to a sweeper keeper, but Courtois isn't really known to be the best sweeper keeper, although he is world class and he is up there in terms of, top 3 goalkeepers in the world. I don't think that ability and that aspect of his game is, that amazing. So therefore, I think more of a balanced approach, making him a bit more of a traditional based goalkeeper, staying on his line, looking to try and make the save, is more or less what you would try to expect from a realistic aspect from the likes of your goalkeeper. As for the saving on crosses, of course, he is tall, he is strong, very good at claiming those aerial balls when they are fired into the box, so therefore, comfort crosses is going to be essential. As for your 2 backline players, of course, you've got Militao as well as Alaba, or it could potentially be the likes of Rudiger if you would like, but nonetheless, I've made no major changes to their instructions. For the likes of Alphonso Davies and Carvajal, both of them have the same roles going forward. They're going to look to try and support the attack, make those overlapping runs as much as possible, try to create a lot of the width down either side of the field, especially with the likes of Rodrigo and Vinny looking to cut inside and link up a bit more centrally with the likes of Mbappe, and maybe even a Jude Bellingham. So, in order to replicate a very effective wing-back type role for both of your fullbacks, I've told both of them to join the attack as well as overlap, and then finally, you want them to be very aggressive, get nice and close to the opposition winger, make sure that, they aren't comfortable on the ball when they are in their attacking third, your defensive third, and therefore step up is going to be required. As you'll see here for the likes of Carvajal, he's got the same role and same instructions, just like the likes of Alphonso Davies. Into the midfield, we've got Tchouaméni. He is set to a very basic defensive behavior, more so trying to keep the structural integrity of the team. He will have a lot of free roaming parts just in front of him, so more so with the engine room of the midfield, you would require him to more or less try and stay central as much as possible. But in terms of the attacking support, I've set him to balanced. Tchouaméni is a very, very good DM, don't get me wrong, but he also has some really good attacking outlet that you would still try and implement with this side, especially with the forward runs being set beyond. He will get nice and high up the field. And more so, I do find that with your DM, in this situation specifically, with your DM allowed to venture forward, it does allow you to potentially win those aerial balls just outside of the opponent's box, looking to try and challenge the opposition players for those headers or those clearances and looking to try and win it back and recycle it. As for the interceptions, I've set him to aggressive, looking to try and implement a very aggressive style on the opposition, impose himself as much as he possibly can, and maybe even look to try and break up as much play as he can higher up the field if applicable. As for the positioning freedom, Tchouaméni, of course, you would expect him to be able to drop a bit deeper, collect the ball off of the backline, and then look to try and progress it forward, whether it's linking up very effectively with the 2 number 8s just in front of him, or maybe, spraying those balls out wide in behind for the forward to try and run onto. As for the defensive positioning, just like with the offensive style and structure, you would more or less expect him to stay central, and if required, you can look to manually drag him out of his natural central position. As for the likes of Jude Bellingham, he will be the more attacking of the 2 number 8s or central midfielders. So for his attacking support, he's set to get forward, and as for the support on crosses, I've told him to get into the box, allowing you to add that aerial threat and ability in and around that attacking third, of course. For the interceptions, I've set him to normal, and then finally, the defensive positioning is set to cover the wing. So naturally, with your number 6 covering the central areas, you would expect your 2 number 8 to try and drift wide, and then the helping hand in those wider areas on the defensive end. For the positioning freedom going forward, on the ball, in possession of it, I'm more or less expecting him to not be able to drift wide and pick up the little pockets of space. More so, you want your front 3 to be able to be that creative outlet and force. So therefore, stick to position for Jude, but keep this in mind, he will still be able to get forward and attack and express himself in that manner. So don't be, don't think that, oh, Jude's now being, in a way, reduced and his attacking outlet's going to be reduced, because essentially it's not. He's more or less just going to be operating in the left half space. As for the likes of Valverde, of course, for him and his role going forward, he does tend to, bomb forward quite a lot and be very involved in the attack higher up the field. Of course, with the forward runs being set on, he will be encouraged to bomb forward. But in terms of the attacking support, I have told him to stay back. Now, because you have two mitigating factors with the get forward for the runs, as well as, telling him to stay back, he does tend to have a very nice balanced approach in terms of what he can do in the central areas of the park. So stay back while attacking. It can also allow him to try and help support the likes of Tchouameni with the builder play as well, or maybe even allow him to just support him in a more defensive manner as well. The support on crosses is here to stand on the edge of the box. You don't really require him to break into that attacking area as much. He does tend to pop off shots just on the regular from outside of the box and look to try and recycle play for better offensive opportunities. Of course, for the interceptions, I've set him to aggressive. He does have a lot of bite and tenacity in the midfield area, so you are more or less trying to replicate that, and obviously trying to use that stamina and that energy that he tends to produce on a game-to-game basis. As for the defensive positioning, set to cover the wing, and then for the positioning freedom, I've set him to drift wide, looking to try and drift into that wider right channel, support the likes of Rodrigo with the attacking play in that wider right area of the pitch. So moving into your front line, of course, we've got the likes of Vinicius, Mbappe, and Rodrigo. VMR could be a flashy new name for them, but we'll start off with the likes of Rodrigo. Slightly differing roles for the front three, I will say this. And one thing I will say is, this season we've seen the likes of Ancelotti allow Rodrigo and Vinicius Jr. to hang higher up the field, allow them to be an outlet for an offensive counter potentially. But we have also seen in the past with the likes of PSG, with Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe, when the manager doesn't require the front three to come back, there can be issues, there can be holes in the defense. The opposition can potentially get at your defense. So I would say you would require at least one of your front three to be able to drop a bit deeper, help support the builder play, as well as help support the defense. So I've selected Rodrigo to do it because I think more naturally he does have those tendencies to come back, help out on the defensive end. I think also Vinicius Jr. can do a very effective job, but more so I've selected Rodrigo to do this with the likes of Vinicius and Mbappe hanging higher up the field, being that offensive outlet. So therefore, for Rodrigo, he's going to help out quite a bit on the defensive end. As for the chance creation, I've set him to a balanced width, allowing him to sometimes stay a bit wider, other times look to cut inside, link up very much with the likes of Mbappe, or maybe even look to try and pop off shots of his own. You want to try and use the pace and the space that the opposition will allow for you, but as well as the space and the pace of this front three when going forward. So therefore, getting behind is going to be essential. As for the likes of the interceptions, you want at least one of them to aggressively press the opposition's backline as much as possible. So therefore, again, I've selected Rodrigo to do so. And then finally, for the support on crosses, I've set them to balanced, sometimes breaking into that box, other times looking to supply on the edge of the area. As for the likes of Vinicius Jr., he's set to stay forward and also have a balance with, allowing him to, yes, sometimes stay wide or other times, cut inside and pop off shots of his own. Using his speed is going to be essential to try and exploit the opposition with, so therefore getting behind is essential. And then finally, interceptions are set to normal with the support on crosses, just like with Rodrigo, being set to balanced. As for the likes of Mbappe, he is set to drift wide, of course, looking to drift along the back line of the opposition as much as possible, maybe even pulling players out of position and allowing for the likes of a Jude Bellingham to try and exploit those more central areas. For the attacking runs, I've told him to get in behind, obviously looking to try and exploit the opposition with his sheer pace and power. For the interceptions, I've set him to normal, or you could potentially set him to conservative. I think conservative might be a bit more of a realistic role, but in terms of FC24 and the mechanics used with that, I think it's more effective to use normal interceptions. And then finally, for the defensive support, just like with Vinny, he's going to be told to stay forward and be an out-there ball for a counter. Now, moving on to the false nine system, of course, I think personally that this system gets the best out of each individual, especially in that front line. It allows them to express themselves, use their unique abilities to the advantage of the team, and that is obviously going to be Real Madrid. So, taking a look at the formation at hand, it is a 4-3-3 false nine. I've made no changes to the structure whatsoever, so therefore it will be one goalkeeper, two centre-backs, two full-backs, one DM, two central midfielders, one centre-forward, and then of course two wingers. So, moving on to the tactics. Now, I will say this, there's no changes whatsoever to them. I wanted to try and replicate a very similar system with only a few real changes, and that comes with the instructions. But again, I think that this system with these tactics works a lot better than the substandard 4-3-3 system. So, in terms of the tactics, it's still going to be wing play with pressure and heavy touch, 50 width, 85 depth for the defensive side of things. As for the offense, the builder play is still set to balance with the chance creation is still set to forward runs. As for the width, again, still set to 85. Players in the box, you still want more or less 4 players in and around that attacking area, so it's going to be set to 8. And then corners and free kicks, as always, still set to 4. Okay, so taking a look at the instructions, I will say this: Courtois and as well as the backline, no major changes to it. They all have the same roles as the balanced approach, just like the likes of your midfield 3. Again, they don't have any differing instructions. It's exactly the same. As for the likes of Rodrigo, of course, playing as that false 9 type player, him and Jude Bellingham tend to have quite a nice, change of positions in certain moments with this formation in hand and with these instructions. So make sure you do tend to nail the instructions, otherwise you won't really get the interchanging plays. And when the likes of Rodrigo does drop a bit deeper, sometimes he pulls a player out of position, and it allows for Jude to break into that more center forward type role. So I quite enjoyed that very much so. As for the likes of Rodrigo and to replicate his role, I would say drift wide is going to be essential, looking to drift along the backline, just like with what Mbappe would naturally do for the 4-3-3, but this time doing it at a slightly deeper rate, playing as that false 9, linking up very effectively with the midfield, as well as allowing him to get on the ball a bit earlier and drive at the opposition backline, looking to maybe try and facilitate a bit more for the other 2 forwards. For the interceptions, I've set it to normal, and then finally you want him to be able to come back on defense, drop a bit deeper, help support the likes of the midfield when trying to win that ball back very effectively. As for your 2 superstars, of course, we've got Vini Jr. on the left-hand side and Mbappe on the right. Now, more so I've gone with Mbappe on the right because he has played that position before. We obviously know that he wants to play on the left-hand side, but I think he will potentially more or less try and sacrifice to try and make the system work very effectively, and he will get a large portion of the attacking outlets down that right flank, so he doesn't need to worry about will the ball get to him or not. But in terms of their roles going forward, they have the same roles, same instructions, and I think that these instructions particularly get the best out of both Vini and Mbappe. So you want them to both stay forward, of course, being the outlet for a potential counter, but for the chance creation, stay wide. They look to try and attack from those wider angles and then look to arc their runs into the box. So it can be very effective, and you can look to potentially create those 1v1 situations with the opposition fullback, looking to try and isolate them and then obviously look to try and take them on very effectively. As for the support runs, of course, you want to try and use their pace and explosiveness to try and break that opposition's defense. As for the interceptions, I've set it to aggressive, looking to try and implement a very aggressive press on the opposition's backline, looking to force errors and mistakes and a few turnovers where applicable. As for the support on crosses, like I said earlier, you want them to try and arc their runs into the box, so therefore get into the box is going to be essential for the support on crosses. As you'll see here for the superstar Mbappe, he's got the same role as well. So there you have it, guys. That is how I would imagine the likes of Real Madrid would shape up, with Mbappe in the front line and Alphonso Davies in the back line. Now, of course, this is all just speculation. Who knows? Mbappe might not go to Real Madrid. Maybe he finds himself in the Premier League playing for Arsenal. I don't think so, but it could be a possibility. What I do know is, out of 10, I would give this set of instructions and these tactics a solid 9.5. In terms of individually, the false 9 system, I'd give a solid 10. I think those could be the most effective tactics I've ever made in terms of getting the best out of that front line and how you can look to try and run on the break and just exploit the opposition as much as possible. In terms of the 4-3-3 though, it would probably be a 9. So therefore, if you add them together, a solid 9.5 out of 10. You guys can let me know down below what your scores and rankings out of 10 would be. That would be absolutely appreciated, as well as if you are there, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. That would be absolutely appreciated as well. We are on the road to 5,000 subs, and the faster we can get there, obviously it will be amazing, and well, that would be damn cool, to be fair. But anyways, I've waffled on for long enough. You guys can let me know down below how you found the tactics, and of course, until tomorrow, I'll see you guys later. I'm out.